Hi, my name is Tony Paradis, registered dietitian and personal trainer with Food and Fitness Online. Today, I'm going to talk about water weight. And water weight is important because weight loss and fat loss are not the same, and water weight can give us some false indicators of whether we're losing fat or whether we're losing just general weight. So I'll talk about weight loss versus fat loss. I'll talk about the variables that affect water weight, and finally I'll talk about some tools to help track true fat loss. So starting off with weight loss versus fat loss, I'm going to give you guys some background. And I like to use the analogy that when the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to view every problem as a nail. And the same way works for weight loss. If the only tool you have is a scale, you tend to view everything related to that related to weight. Gain or loss, fat loss is still related to the scale, muscle gain, everything. And you really limit yourself when you only use that tool. And I also want to talk about yo-yo dieting. And what yo-yo dieting is, it's a term used for people that go on a diet and diet really strictly for a little bit of while and they lose a bunch of weight and then they're back off the diet. And then they do another diet and they repeat this cycle. People that yo-yo diet are notorious for thinking that water weight is true weight loss or fat loss. They lose a lot of weight in the beginning, they get really excited, and when results start to stall, they lose faith in the program. And often, they're losing a lot of muscle along with their water weight, so when they gain the weight back, they have a lower metabolism, and they're usually gaining back more weight than when they started. And people are really married to the scale. They really like to see the scale needle move, and that gives them an idea of their progress, and it can be an indicator of fat loss, but it's not an absolute. So we need to get away from that sort of mindset on the difference between weight loss and fat loss and how water weight plays into that system. Also with weight loss versus fat loss, I want you guys to establish some realistic expectations about fat loss. Weight loss does not equal fat loss, and I've talked about that. Weight fluctuates by the hour. So if you weigh yourself in the morning, you know that later in the evening you're going to be maybe 2 or 3 even 5 pounds heavier. Does this mean that you've gained 2 or 3 or 5 pounds of fat? No, it doesn't. This is because water weight fluctuates by the hour. And finally, it takes 3,500 calories, or about that much, to equal a pound of fat, lost or gained. So it takes either a large deficit or a large surplus of calories to gain or lose a pound of fat. So we can be assured that these little weight fluctuations on the scale can be attributed to water weight and not true fat loss or gain. Women, you can expect to lose about half a pound to a pound of true fat loss per week, and this is even less once you get closer to your goal weight. You can look at maybe a quarter pound a week. And men will lose an average of about 1 to 2 pounds of fat loss per week, and also lower as you get closer to the end of your dieting. And so when you're losing fat, you want to burn the highest ratio of fat. And what this means is that you're burning the most amount of fat and the least amount of muscle. So to burn the highest ratio of fat, you need to focus on 2 things. A, stimulate muscle preservation, and B, facilitate fat oxidation. So what that means is you need to preserve your lean muscle and you need to initiate a fat loss. So to stimulate muscle preservation, you need to do 2 things. 1 is heavy weight training, and 2 is increase your protein intake. Protein is the building blocks of your muscles, and you'll need more of that to help preserve them. And B, facilitate fat oxidation. To do this, 2 things. 1, decrease your calorie intake, and 2, increase your calorie output. So in other words, you need to eat less and move more, while at the same time engaging in heavy weight training and increasing your protein intake. This will help you burn the highest ratio of fat. Now let's switch gears and talk about some variables that affect water weight. And there's many different variables. Let me start with gender. And so if you're a woman, you're going to have hormone cycles and therefore have a lot bigger weight fluctuations throughout the month. Men tend to not have that as much. Your fluid intake and diuretics can also affect your water weight gain or loss. So water itself is a diuretic, meaning it helps you excrete water. So the more water you drink, the more water you will excrete. Other diuretics include caffeine, alcohol, and water pills. So that's something to take into consideration too. Carbohydrates are a big player in the water weight gain or loss. Your muscles store carbohydrate energy as a form called glycogen. And this is like the battery of the muscles. It gives you energy that's stored for later use. And to store that glycogen, your body also needs to attach water molecules to that. So for every 1 pound of glycogen you have, you're going to hold on to 3 pounds of water weight. This is why when people cut carbohydrates, they usually see a large weight drop in the beginning. This is attributed to water weight. Calorie fluctuation. So just by eating more or less calories can affect your weight on the scale or your water weight. Electrolytes are a big player too. So we know that salt often makes people feel puffy. It can make you hold on to a little more water if you're eating a lot of electrolytes or sodium. Inflammation is also a variable that can affect water weight. So, you know when you hit your head or you hit your hand, how it starts to swell up? Well, if you're inflamed, you're going to see some swelling and some water retention due to that. And there's also a few random things that affect water weight. One could be the weather. Is it humid outside? Is it hot outside? This can affect your weight on the scale. Your stress level can affect your water weight gains and loss, and also the time of the day. We talked about how if you weigh in the morning, you're usually lighter, and how if you weigh in the evening, you're going to be heavier. This is due to water weight. Finally, let me wrap up and talk about some tools to help track fat loss. Number one, and I think the most important tool, is to keep really good records of your food and exercise journal. So if you're seeing weight fluctuations on the scale, you can go and you can look at your journal and say, okay, I'm eating the right things, I'm exercising the right way, I just need to have faith in my plan and see what happens in the next few weeks. Another recommendation for a tool to help track fat loss is to take a picture of yourself in the mirror every week. So pick a day, at the same time, take a picture of yourself in the mirror and use that to see how your body is changing over time, and this will give you an indication of how well your nutrition and fitness program is working. The bathroom scale is a good tool if you use it the right way. So my recommendation is weigh once per week on the same time and day every week. So every Monday at 8 a.m. weigh yourself, for example, and stick to that to compare your weight week to week. Women, you're going to have to compare your weights month to month. So, for example, weigh on the first of the month and then on the first of the next month and use that to compare. You can still weigh yourself more often than that, but compare yourself so that you're about the same time in accordance to your hormone cycle so you can have a better indicator of true fat loss, which is what we want to find out if we're trying to track fat loss. A measuring tape is very important. Use this to go around your belly, your arms, your legs, and take these measurements because this can also be an indicator of fat loss, and it'll help keep your mind out of just being focused on the scale. And finally, if you have access to one, you can use a body composition testing device. One very common one is the threefold caliper skin test. And this is where you pinch yourself in 3 different sites and it gives you an indicator of what your muscle mass is and what your fat mass is, so your body composition. Another very common one is bioelectric impedance. And these are the devices where you hold onto your hands and it measures your fat composition through a current. So those tools can help you track fat loss. In conclusion, I'd like to wrap up with 3 points. One is weight loss is not the same as fat loss. And we talked about water weight and how much of a variable that can add to the numbers on the scale. There are many different variables that affect water weight and weight fluctuation. Your gender, carbohydrates, the weather, and we talked about all of those. And finally, use the right tools to help track your fat loss. The bathroom scale is one of many tools. Like I said before, if the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to view every problem as a nail. So I hope I've been able to explain and educate you a little bit more on water weight. My name is Tony Paradis, registered dietitian and personal trainer for food and fitness. If you'd like to find out more, please check out my website at foodandfitnessonline.com. Thank you.